Yes, yeah, it is. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for lunch.
Because we were out in Marshfield here about a week ago and they said about stopping those guys, but out there for quite a while.
It's better, so I've been there a couple times and it's okay, it's not.
There's always good food when you're there.
Oh, thank you. Oh. Are you?
I went through your first.
Did you, Ronaldo? You didn't stop?
On my way to Rio.
Do it or what?
I went to directions to get a run.
Okay.
They said they guaranteed it for the first 2 days.
The 30 right before you want it. Did they?
I've had friends that
Exactly. Yeah, they're well known. Darren, did you chase Bob away?
She's in a trailer
Bob, here.
somewhere. Because what happened is that
He didn't see what job he took. He came
that's what I was waiting.
And I wouldn't have even discounted
Reimbursed, that's the only one that matches. Train the agents down there. It's always like beautiful, beautiful area.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
He moved like if he had to.
Dedicated enough. There is right down by the river. Yeah, it's right downtown. I don't know. Try. I can deal with cool. Cool's fine. I can wear a jacket, but I don't want it raining.
I don't think so.
Had the amended agenda, but I never got around to it. Or the amendment one came out yesterday. I didn't see it. I don't know what it's from, but
Being 7 o'clock, we'll call the Marathon County Board of Supervisors to order, please. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing because that will be followed by a moment of reflection. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would like to, we'll have the reading of the notice, please.
The adjourned organizational meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse Assembly Room, 500 Forest Street, Wausau, on Tuesday, September 18th at 7 p.m. to consider the items as were listed on the agenda.
Thank you. I'd like to request everybody, please silence their cell phones or put them on vibrate so as not to disturb the meeting. And we will proceed to roll call. Please sign in. Supervisor Crosby and Supervisor Krause, please confirm. Thank you. And Supervisor Crosby. Thank you. And we will proceed. And I would like to welcome all of the visitors we have tonight, along with the viewing audience. I would especially like to welcome, we have Dale Schermaker from City County Data Center. And we also have Stephen Chirick from the Treasurer's Office. They're here with the County Leadership Development Program, and their goal is to learn more about the operations and understand the county board's role in this form of government. So welcome, and hope you find not only it interesting, but also educational. So we will move on to 15-minute public comment, and nobody approached me, and Nan had no one request public comment. And so we will move on to item number B, consent agenda, items number B, 8 through 10A. Motion by Supervisor Rosenberg and second by Supervisor Gums. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. We will move on to item C, reports. And we have a budget update by the administrator, Brad Carger.
The news is not that good. It never is at this time of the year, and it's very complicated. So I'm going to try to take you through just the big picture stuff. And if somebody wants to drag me into the deep water, the problem is we'll lose as many people as we gain. But let me just give you some of the high points. The economy of Marathon County is strong. The equalized value for apportionment went up 3.87%, and that's good, strong economy. And the net new construction went up 1.592%. There were a couple of things that detracted from this. There's a new personal property adjustment which impacted those municipalities, and that decreased that by $380,000. Plus our bridge aid estimate last year was $273,000. This year is $145,000. So all that added together means that your maximum taxing authority for next year is $354,749 more than last year. Also, I'm working off a WCA estimate on sales tax, and they estimate that we will have collect $13 million in sales tax, which means an increase of $400,000. Now for the exciting news here, the healthcare costs, which hadn't gone up in 4 or 5 years, will go up 9%, which will cost $1 million. Now I know a lot of you are very hopeful about getting 6 dispatcher positions and opening up a dispatch line, and I have a plan for that, but it's not going to be new money in the budget because there is no new money in the budget. The cost of 6 dispatchers is about $400,000. The only way you're going to be able to fund that high priority is by taking or doing less of a lower priority, and we'll talk about a plan to do that. But I just want to give you a sense here that there is no crisis. We do not have a crisis. We have a $170 million budget. We have choices within that budget. So there's no emergency, but we are stressed. I don't see any need for layoffs, but there will also be no money for new positions. There will be some restructuring of things that we previously contracted for to meet a couple of priorities, but we're not going to have new money to put in new positions. My plan for the dispatchers, and it is just an outline at this point. I can't do the budget and put together the final plan, is that we take a hard look at secure detention facility. Let me tell you what that is. It's a jail for kids. That's the easiest way to explain it. It's not, some have talked to me about, it's Lincoln Hills. No, that's a prison for kids. Long-term sentencing. The jail typically has 5 days. And when we built the jail for kids, the secure detention facility, I think it was in '92, we had a lot of kids in it. Right now we have average of 3. 3 from our county, 3 from other counties. Our kids cost more than double their kids do. The market will not allow us to charge more, but because we have such a high overhead and such a low number of kids there, and other counties are renting at the same space we are, we can't really double our prices. We're paying a lot more than we could if that facility were full per kid. We might pay the same amount. So what we're going to look at is an option to take our kids and relocate them, like other counties do, to other facilities that exist. And I'm not exactly sure where they all are off the top of my head, but the ones I recall are La Crosse, Eau Claire, Appleton. It's the larger, more metropolitan. And we're also going to have to budget costs for shuttling kids around. You know, they're going to have to get there and get back. And I can tell you, without having been lectured, it's not as good for kids to be housed in a different county and separated that far from their family as it is to have them here in our county. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine, but then we can't do the dispatch channel either. So it comes down to, that's the only option I can think of that would generate enough savings to open the police channel. So that'll be the difficult issue that you're faced with. Pretty much the departmental budgets are going to be held down to 2%. I'm through about 80% of them, but 80% of the money hasn't showed up yet, and the 80% of the money's in 3 departments: highway, social services, and sheriff's department. So we'll work through those, and you know, the drug epidemic hasn't gone away. So we continue to have people housed, more people than ever housed in out-of-county jails, and that's driving up our costs. And that same drug epidemic is causing kids to need to be in out-of-home placements. Some are relatively reasonable in terms of price with foster care and treatment foster care. But when you get to institutions, you're talking about very expensive kinds of treatment. And one of the things I've done when I've done the budgets is I will not change the department's estimates on the need for out-of-home placement just to make the balance work, because the courts will decide based on the needs of the child, not the financing of the county, where those kids are placed. And it doesn't make any sense to just make it look good and balance the budget. We have to have good estimates. I won't change them unilaterally, but I will question them and make sure that we're making good use of it and that I fully understand it. But that's a very complicated process. But the philosophy I have is we're going to estimate what kids in Marathon County need, and then we'll just add that up and work from there. There are really not a whole lot of new things going into this budget, as you can imagine. I've already talked to some of the nonprofit agencies, and told them that we're planning on phasing out support for nonprofit agencies, but that won't be final until the budget is adopted. Some of them are very upset about that, and I had anticipated that, but they all know that the funding for their nonprofit organizations is secure for next year, and I'm telling them for the next 2 years. And after that, so that we get out of this over time. It's really not that much money. But I've been here for 30 years. We've talked about it for 30 years. Let's decide if we're going to fund nonprofit agencies, and if so, what? And let's force that issue and get it over with, because just continuing to talk about it or talk about it in the day of the budget hasn't gotten us anywhere. And if you want to restore that, it is money, but it's not going to impact the 2019 budget. Actually, it'd be three budgets down the road that it would impact. And we can talk about that more. If I go any further, I can tell you a lot of the estimates on state aids, one came in today, I didn't even have time to open it. But here's a prediction, be pretty much the same as last year. So state aids are gonna stay the same. I think most of our aids, with the exception of the bridge aid, are gonna be about the same. I haven't seen any real pullbacks or major pullbacks with regard to state aid. What happens sometimes is you'll see a headline, it'll say this went up a lot. Oh, unfortunately, well, we get 5 pots from them and these other ones went down, and when you add them up, it's kind of the same amount of money. So you got to be careful with, when you see a percentage, when something went up went up 10%. What went up and how much was it and what happened to the other funding sources that are out there? So it's a very complicated process. As I'm doing this budget, my estimates come in and I build things around it, and then like just today, we got the bridge aid. Oh, we got a new estimate. That's how the budget project comes and goes and comes and goes, and really, it doesn't get its final. It doesn't get really put together until just before the finance committee gets it. A lot of the state estimates haven't come in yet. We're making assumptions as to what they'll be, but it really comes together at that last minute. It will be a balanced budget that will be presented to you. And we're, as much as possible, going to try to avoid things that we've hit in the past, which is spending down reserves or borrowing more than we have to. Our capital costs, you're going to talk about the capital improvement plan. In the past, we used to have, $9 million to spend, and now we're probably talking something more closer to $2 million. What's happened is we're budgeting closer. And what that is it's the money from 2 years ago that got audited that hasn't been spent, and we now apply that to capital projects. How much longer we can go forward with that, I don't know. At some point we're gonna, I think, say we're gonna have to build that back into the base budget and borrow for capital projects as other counties have. But that's a bridge we'll have. We may cross it this year, but if you're disappointed with the number of projects that we can fund. But certainly we're going to cross that bridge with the next budget.
Okay, any questions for the administrator? Supervisor Miller.
Brad, what's the expected reduction because of the secure detention facility and the nonprofits being phased?
How much do I think we can save out of that?
Yes.
I think we can save between $300,000 and $400,000.
On both of those?
Yeah, on both of those.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research. That's my preliminary estimate. The other thing, did I tell you the tax rate will go from $495 to $480? So the tax rate, if you're a fan of that, we're still taking in more money. It's a complicated deal. But that's the highest you can tax, not the lowest.
Supervisor Zerini.
Brad, when you talk about the 9% for the increase in health insurance, is
Yes.
that the county's portion that's increasing?
Yes.
And
Oh, that's a total amount.
total amount.
Yes.
Has
Employees
our
pay 15%.
consultant talked about redesigning some benefits to kind of mitigate some of that impact?
I know I have to do that.
Okay.
Okay, Supervisor Seibert.
Are we planning to man 24-hour shifts for the dispatch?
Yes.
And would it be possible to manage 16 hours, 2 8-hour shifts, and the slow time go back to our system that we're doing now.
Here's what I say to that. 6 will give you 24-hour coverage on a police channel. And I've had some of the chiefs say, well, it's 6 or nothing. I got a feeling if we can get 2 more is better. 2 is better than none. And you can do power shifts and stuff like that and put it in times. Is what is desired, what is requested is a full 24 hours. But I think we're going to end up there, but it may take a while for us to eliminate enough positions from the closure of the secure detention facility and transfer, and then use that money to fill dispatcher positions. I think if things work out the way it has, we could have 6 vacancies by the end of next year and have a full police channel going. But that's why I'm doing all this other stuff too.
Supervisor Gomes.
Yeah, what is the exact, or the percent that you're allowed to raise it with the state mandate?
The highest I can raise it is what I told you, it's a total levy, which is that dollar amount, and it is a 15% or 15-cent reduction in the rate. That's the highest.
Yeah, the highest increases, the revenue,
15%.
$354,000
Right.
are taken in additional.
And how much is that 350, or what is that percent?
It's
One
roughly
something?
a little over 2%.
Yeah, okay.
Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Carga, just a question for you. With the closure of the secure detention, is that going to be a long-term solution, or is this more of a short-term solution to fund the 6th position with the dispatch?
I think it's long-term.
Can we foresee any problems occurring down the road with the closure of the secure detention?
Yes. What if the law changes, 17-year-olds now become children instead of adults? That was one of the big problems is we opened this up and most of the kids who get in enough trouble that they're incarcerated are older, and then 17-year-olds became adults, and then they're in the adult jail system. There has been a bill by our own Senator Petrusky, to put them back in the juvenile system, which is better for kids and makes it safer for the community. Even the McIver Institute and the governor support that. But it's been discussed a number of times, and there hasn't been agreement between the Counties Association and the governor's office as to how those costs would be funded.
Just a follow-up, and it's only going to be closing the secure detention side, not the shelter. Is that correct?
We're going to take on the secure detention side first and talk about the shelter second. I think we're going to have a shelter. A lot of the kids there are runaways, and it's on secure side. I think you could generate some savings if you had a nonprofit run it rather than the county run it.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brad, the $354,000 increase does not include the sales tax, so does it?
No,
No.
you got
The
another
sales tax is a separate
$400,000.
line item.
So you got $750,000 to play with, but you got $1 million bill, plus that doesn't count utilities or anything else.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, you got a lot to go up.
Okay, any other questions? That was the good news.
Other than that, it's going good.
Supervisor Robinson.
Al Christensen asked me to ask this question. So, not really, we talked about it earlier. In light of where we are, have we given any thought about our relationship with some of our enterprise accounts, i.e. the airport in the solid waste facility, in terms of our ability to collect potentially payments for municipal services and other things, looking at that concept as they're independent authorities that are break even, but are there some opportunities for us to evaluate our relationship with them?
I don't actually know what to say about the airport, but I do know that for 20 years, somebody has discussed that Lincoln County gets money out of the solid waste system for general operations. And I can remember actually Bill Drengler having addressed that issue, and I don't know what happened to it. Do you know, Scott? No. So we'd have to look at that. It has been done in Lincoln County, or people have told me it's been done in Lincoln County. It may be more nuanced than people have told me, but I don't know what about the airport at all. I don't know what you could do there. I've never heard of anybody taxing their own facility. By the way, they don't have any money. So they're broker than we are. So maybe that's not a good place.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
There you go.
Moving on, ordinances. Item number D, Environmental Resources Committee. Number 12, Town of Easton, rezone Arnie Sly as town chairman for the Town of Easton. Ordinance 25-18. Motion by Supervisor Budke and second by Supervisor Tremelling. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, we will proceed to vote. Supervisor Black, please vote and confirm. If you please set it on the table and just, there you go, thank you. All right, and we will proceed, and the motion is carried unanimously. Item number 13, Town of Ween rezone, J. Hoppenworth Ordinance 0-26-18. And Supervisor Langenhahn with the motion and Supervisor Drabeck with the second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing, Supervisor Gums.
I see it was disapproved by the town board. Can anybody explain this?
I'm looking to the chairman of the Land Conservation Zoning Committee.
Would not have gotten to this level if they hadn't approved it. That's one of our standards. So Richard, where are you looking at the packet?
I'm looking at the disapproval by the town board on the second page. It says disapprove.
Supervisor Pfeffrick?
Being on the Environmental Resources Committee, when it was presented to us, it was presented with that the town had approved of the zoning, so I don't know where that came from.
Supervisor Langenhahn.
I guess in light of this information, it's back to the Environmental Resources Committee for next month's meeting. I apologize.
Is there a motion on the floor to approve yet?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Then there needs to be a motion to postpone, or there needs to be a motion to refer it back to committee.
So, okay, Supervisor Johnson.
I would move that we refer it back to committee for clarification, whether or not the town was recommending approval or disapproval.
Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Gums. All right, any discussion on the motion to refer? Any discussion on the motion to refer back to committee for clarification? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And the motion is to refer item 13, Town of Ween rezone J. Hoppenworth back to committee for clarification on the town's paperwork that shows that they disapprove. Supervisor Sly and Supervisor Pfeffrick, please vote. Supervisor Sly, could you try to vote one more time? There you go. Thank you, and we will proceed. And the motion is carried. The agenda item is referred back to committee. Item number 14, ordinance amending General Code of Ordinances for Marathon County, Chapter 22, Shoreland/Wetlands and Floodplain Code, Ordinance 27-18. Motion by Supervisor Nutting and second by Supervisor Christensen. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Resolutions. Item E, Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee, a resolution approving the 2019 Capital Improvement Program projects, and this is Resolution 45-18. Just a little history, so maybe some of the new supervisors understand. What this is those projects are sent to the CIP, which is a subcommittee of the Human Resources and Finance and Property Committee. That committee looks at all of the capital projects and then ranks them based on a ranking criteria. And then that information is brought forward to the Finance Committee, because again, the CIP committee is a subcommittee of the Finance Committee. It's their recommendation that that the projects be ranked as they've ranked them. At this point, it's adopting the plan. It is not saying which, if any, or all of those projects are going to be funded at this point. It's only adopting the way they were ranked by the CIP committee, and effectively then the Finance Committee adopts and takes their recommendation and brings forward to this board its recommendation on the CIP ranking. And so what you have before you is the ranking of the projects that were presented to the CIP committee for their ranking, and then ultimately forwarded to the Finance Committee. Supervisor Schaefer. Okay, is there a motion motion by Supervisors Rennie and second by Supervisor Stark to approve the 2019 Capital Improvement Program projects? Supervisor Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now that University of Wisconsin, Wausau, Stevens Point, whatever it's called, from what I understand, it's now part of UW Stevens Point. Is that correct? And here's my question. If it is, why do we still own those buildings? If Stevens Point doesn't own, or Portage County doesn't own the UW Stevens Point buildings?
That you are absolutely correct, and that is still in the process, because we don't know long-term whether we're hopeful that the campus is viable long-term going forward, but there is a concern about the number of students that are there, the enrollment, and the viability of that campus long-term.
Are you trying to say that eventually it will be owned by the University of Wisconsin and we will no longer own the buildings?
I am not implying anything.
Okay. I mean, is that what they're going to look at, or because you have field house renovation in here, and you know we spend a lot of money on that campus, and if Stevens Point doesn't have to pay for their buildings, I don't know why we should pay for ours. But I mean, it's something we should definitely go after and look at. So, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson.
I think in response to that, I'd say the university system can't even pay all the professors they have, so I don't think they're going to be looking at acquiring buildings. It'd be very, very doubtful that they would be ponying up to buy buildings or take over maintenance.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion to approve the 2019 capital improvement projects? Again, this is not putting any funding to any one of those programs or any one of those projects. It is only adopting the recommendation from the Finance Committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Item EE, Infrastructure Committee, number 15A, County Bridge and Culvert Aid, Resolution 46-18. Motion by Supervisor Robinson and second by Supervisor Pfeffrick. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Item F, announcements and/or requests. The two things that the chair has. One is tomorrow there is the unveiling of the signage at the University Stevens Point Wausau campus, which will be the new signage, the former UWMC campus, at 1 o'clock. And if inclement weather, it will be at the Civic Engagement Theater. And also, there is starting for all of those that have gone or are going to WCA's annual convention. That will be starting Sunday, Monday, and ending at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. So that's the only announcements that the chair has. Any announcements the clerk has? Needs signatures from Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee. Supervisor Stark.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to announce to the HR Finance Committee that we do have an October 1st meeting. It's a Monday, and it's going to be at Seaway at 3 p.m., followed by a joint meeting with the finance from the airport group. So that is, I wanted to announce that because it's not in the usual place.
Okay, that's also a joint meeting with the Portage County Board after hours at the airport. Supervisor Opel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to announce that on Friday at 9 a.m., Rib Mountain Dog Park opens, ribbon cutting. You'll see such dignitaries there as our town supervisor, Mr. Klein, who has, and a special thank you with all the work that he did. I'd like to recognize him for that, chief organizer of that particular. And it will feature our own County Board Chairman, Gibbs, and a keynote speech. So you're all invited, bring a critter, hopefully a dog.
And I've been working
Bark,
diligently on that speech.
All right, thank you.
Any other announcements and/or requests? Seeing none, I will take number 17, motion by Supervisor Schaefer and second by Supervisor Zhang to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm going down earlier. Bill and I are gonna go down earlier. Get there before. Yeah. So we'll probably kind of bring it out early. We can't check it until Friday. Yes. Right, Dan, so we're all set for lacrosse. It looks like we're staying at, Candlewood. I did, I saw that. Right. It is, it's in here.